do you see how you trigger my protection instinct as a man when you're soft and vulnerable?
Well, now I do,
like, right?
But it's like
I can't control myself. It's like I'm under your power when you do this. Like we say a lot of times to men, look, when you start validating a woman's emotions, many times she reacts with rage. And the reason why is because now she's like able to get out the stuff. Right. And she has all this built up hurt and resentment. And now it's able to come out. You cannot control your partner. No matter how right you are and how wrong they are, a person will not be controlled. They will always fight being controlled. Right. Yeah. And it's just good psychology in general, right? But as a woman, you really want to try and trigger a man's protection response.
And I get this is hard for women to understand because, like I said, I did the wrong thing. I did the wrong thing last week, but luckily I did the wrong thing so badly that I made myself see the reality of what I'm telling you. So I'm not saying this as a woman who's never done that, who's never messed up, who's never been like, I'm just going to blow this whole thing up, because I already messed up.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's the wrong way to be. And it just keeps you in this cycle of being defensive and pushing things away from you and attacking each other and not really fixing anything. So it's hard.
Right.
But it's the right thing to do.
Right. And as a woman, do you see how you trigger my protection instinct as a man when you're soft and vulnerable?
Well, now I do, but it's like
I can't control myself. It's like I'm under your power when you do this. Like,
here's the thing too. Like, I feel like a lot of women though haven't seen that.
Right, they haven't.
Because even on some of our episodes that we recently posted, like the clips of, a lot of women are like, I did this and he just said, figure it out yourself, or like, I don't care. Right. And I'm not saying that that's the majority, but there are some men who, if you are vulnerable, they still don't care. And they're not going to like hug you and be like, I'm so sorry. But a lot of men will. Like, yes. And women, though, have pushed a man to be submissive and people-pleasing by being so aggressive and defensive that she doesn't think he will now act that way, but you haven't given him an opportunity to.
And there's a flip side to it too, right? Which is just like a flip side to the masculine part of it. Because we say a lot of times to men, look, when you start validating a woman's emotions, many times she reacts with rage. And the reason why is because now she's like able to get out the stuff. Right. And she has all this built up hurt and resentment, and now it's able to come out, and that's a good thing. And it sucks that it's happening to you at that point when you're doing the right thing, but you have to persist through it to let her to still do it even while she's doing that, even though it might come across a little bit disrespectful, but give her a little bit of tolerance in this situation here, right? Because you're trying to rebuild that trust, and then she'll come out the other end. And then that'll be done, right? There's a flip side on the female side where, hey, if you've been yelling at a guy, calling him names, treating him badly, disrespecting him, and then now you start acting vulnerable, yeah, he might have a little bit of a reaction like, fuck you then. Like, you know, I mean, he might have a little bit of that like, oh, I finally get a chance to like, you know, be pissed. Now I'm actually pissed, right? There might be some of that, honestly. Like, but, you know, I know it probably is a really hard thing to do, but if you're just dejected and walk away and say, I'm sorry I bothered you. Right. I bet that even the man that's, you know, not the best, if someone doesn't respond to that, there's something wrong with them. You know what I mean? Like you're going to see. But if you persist and you continue to be vulnerable and to be like that, because he's got a lot of hurt, that you're going to be healing that hurt, and then he's going to respond to that. So it can be the case that you get a negative reaction whenever you're, you know, you've treated someone poorly and then you start treating them right, and you'll notice this with anyone in your life. Like there's a little bit of a reaction that comes from that because they're now a little bit free to actually have their emotions, you know. So
well, in which both men and women who are in this situation have to realize that I think if you're doing this, if you're trying to flip, you have to focus on yourself and not what the other person's doing, because it can't be about them. Like, because you have to continue to try to do this, like we said in one of the other episodes, for at least 3 months.
Right.
minimum.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, like you have to give it time, and you have to do it no matter what he does or no matter what she does.
Yes.
Because it is going to be hard in the beginning. And it has to be about you. Like real change comes from what you're going to do about your situation. Yes, your spouse can like bring it up to you and like help you see some of the stuff, but really no matter what they do, it's on you to do it. So stay in your lane.
Yeah, because it's influence versus control.
Right.
You cannot control your partner, no matter how right you are and how wrong they are. A person will not be controlled. They will always fight being controlled.
Right.
But they can be influenced. And so if your outcome is to change their behavior, then you're controlling. If your outcome is to influence them, which sounds like the same thing, it sounds like I'm getting off on a technicality, but it's not the same thing. Because when you say my objective, the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is to change someone else's behavior. That is control.
Right.
And that means that if their behavior does not change, then you have failed. Right. Whereas when you say my objective is to do the right thing and influence their behavior by doing it, even if their behavior doesn't change, you haven't failed.
Right. Because you're still doing the right
that's
thing.
what you set out to do. Right. Because otherwise it's conditional. It's like you're only doing it in order to get something out of someone else. Right. That doesn't seem genuine or authentic. And you're not going to get it out of them because they can sense that. Every time that you do that, people sense it. They know you're just doing this so that they'll change their behavior. It's not because you actually want to change your behavior, and they can sense it, you know?
Right.
So,
well, and so that first thing too will also help you get to being more feminine, right? Yeah. Like being vulnerable and not yelling or being defensive or name calling is a more feminine way. It's a more like soft way to view it. But it's also like, I don't want to say it's soft because being vulnerable, like we talked about, is a very like powerful thing to do. Like a lot of people don't do it because it's so hard.
Right. Hard to do. Yeah.
Right. Like that there is great strength in being vulnerable. So I'm not saying like soft as in like you're weak and like this, you're just turning into a weak little like, help me. But like a man does need to be needed. So that's why you're saying that he should respond eventually with, you know, comforting you and validating your emotions and things like that when you come from a vulnerable place.
Yeah. And like I said, real quick on that before we move on, it's just good psychology, right? How to win friends and influence people. Probably you remember the part in the book where he had the little dog, right, in the park. And the police officer told him, hey, you got to have this dog on a leash, right?
Yeah, it's like, take me away, officer.
Well, no, the first time.
Wrong thing.
Well, the first time he got a warning, right? And the police officer said, next time I see you, you're going to get arrested or you're going to get a fine or whatever, right? And then the very next week, he had the dog off the leash again, and the same mounted police officer, right? He runs into him. And before the police officer can say anything, he says, you caught me red-handed. He's like, you told me last week that I have to have my dog on the leash or I'm going to get in trouble. And I didn't listen to you. And it's totally my fault. I have no excuse. And then the police officer was like, I don't know, son, you're being a little hard on yourself there. You know, it's not that big of a deal. It's like, no, sir. I messed up. You told me and I didn't listen. And I accept the full response. And then he's like, well, you know, you're just a boy and, you know, boys do things and, you know, just maybe I'll tell you what, why don't you I'll just turn my head over here and you know, and he gave him the mercy and the, you know, the kind, but it's like, it's just good psychology. When you defend yourself, right, it goes for man and woman. The other person wants to move in to press it, to say, no, you did do this, right? But when you say, nope, you got me, I did it. You just admit guilt or just, you don't try to defend yourself. You just, then they'll try to defend you. Then they're trying to say, oh, you're not that bad. You're not, no, it's not that serious. Like, no, it's, you know.